Good morning, everybody. This is Celeste Carmichael, Program Development and Accountability Specialist with Extension Administration. I want to welcome you to the CCE Campus County Connection webinar series. Today we're going to be focusing in on internship experiences. I think we've got a really great program and panel here today, so really excited that you're joining us. Just a couple of brief announcements. The Campus County Connection webinar series is really intended to help you be aware of opportunities that blend together research and extension, because we know that the richest experience within cooperative extension is where research and extension come together. So we want to make you aware of some opportunities and resources, share some people and opportunities for building some relationships, and help you know how to follow up if you have an interest. So I'm going to encourage you to chat in as you have questions, and I'll be sure to those questions get to our panelists. The other logistic I just want to make you aware of is if you set your chat to send to all participants or to everyone, that will ensure that everybody gets to see your questions. That's kind of nice. We are here in the WebEx Event Center, which is a little quirky. You'll notice that you can't see other attendees. That is bothersome to some people. I can't change that, or I haven't figured out how to anyway. So apologize for that. But if you send your questions to everybody, at least we can gather and learn from one another in that way. And the other thing is just to make you aware that we are recording this event, and it will be hosted at the end. I'll show you where to find that, but it's on our staff site under the Organizational Development unit and in an area where we have a number of resources for Campus County connections. So welcome today, and with that, I am going to turn it over to Heidi.
Hey, good morning, everyone. We're really happy to have you join us. I'm here with a great group of folks who are going to talk about their internship programs and experiences with internships. And really, I think what we want to say about this is that we hope it'll be a conversation. So as I think about the way that we designed this, it was really to throw out some ideas from our end, but then hopefully you'll be chiming in, letting us know what your concerns, questions about, and experiences are with being a part of internship opportunities. So please do use that chat box. And my colleagues that are here with me today will be introducing themselves as we move along through the presentation. So again, welcome. I think we're going to kick it off with a couple of, I'm moving this ticker, with a couple of polls, and we'll get those up in just a second.
If that works. All right, so there's the first poll. I'm going to open that right now, so if you want to take a minute and let us know how familiar you are with internship opportunities. Okay. All right, I'm closing poll. You have 15 more seconds. The poll ended, but it gives a couple of seconds more on this end. For the stragglers, you know, we all need deadlines. All right, and there you can see the results.
Oh, good. Okay. So what we'll say, for those of you who feel quite familiar, it would be great if, as we go along, there's additional programs that we don't know about that you share. And also, again, we're looking forward to having your experiences shared with us. So, okay, and the next one, Celeste?
All right. So the next poll. All right. I'm clicking on close poll here. It's going to give you a couple more seconds. See. Oh. Okay. All right, and there you go. There's your responses.
Okay, so several of you supervised and interned, great, and others have supported it, and some have not had it but are interested. Okay, good. So again, please ask as we go along. Let's give a little bit more of an overview of what we want to do today. So we wanted to start off by thinking about what's the relevance of internships to Cornell Cooperative Extension. Why are we even having this discussion? Then highlight some of the characteristics of good service learning partnerships. And I think that's particularly important in the context of doing this, because it really is, internships are really about partnerships. And having or highlighting some of those characteristics helps us think about what we as respective partners want out of those internships. Then we'll give you an overview of some of the internship programs offered, at least highlighted on Cornell University's Career Services site. We'll talk about the differences. There's a whole spectrum of internships that are either marketed or offered through Cornell. Then we're going to focus on 3 internship programs in particular that have strong partnerships with Cornell Cooperative Extension, one being Cornell Cooperative Extension internships. And then Bev Mancuso has joined us to share her perspective on her association's work with 2 of those internship programs. And then again, throughout this, we're hoping to hear your questions, concerns, and then some sense of what you need to fulfill your internship goals. Okay.
Is it not working?
I don't think so. Yeah. You said pull down, right?
Yeah.
Good when it was pressed.
All right.
Good. Okay. So, and you guys should chime in here, colleagues sitting here, but when I think of an internship, one of the key things that we talk about with our students and our hosts is making sure that it's meaningful, career-related, or other. It's a cool experiential learning experience. And also, it's not just that someone's out there having to handle it on their own, but they have strong support from a host or mentor. What do you guys want to add to that? Anything that capture it from your perspective? Okay. We have a quiet group at the table today.
They're just
okay. Doris, can you advance that? Mm-hmm. And I just did. Is that showing up for everybody or just me? Okay.
Okay, so this is an open-ended question. We're going to ask for you to chat in your responses. Why consider internships? So just some thoughts from the audience here. And remember to send your chat to all participants. Okay, so responses are coming in. Extending our work, enhancing capacity, a chance to get a different perspective on our work, likely from a young person's point of view.
Great, yes, good point.
Richer experiences for program participants.
And I would just add all program participants.
Bringing a special project to fruition, perhaps implementing an evaluation plan after it's been developed.
Nice, extra help, but meaningful help. Okay, good comments. So here's just some thoughts from brainstorming. So some benefits for CCE communities and interns. Internship programs want to partner with you. Your goals matter. So this is an opportunity to achieve mutual or at least shared goals, or at least mutual goals. Interns are really typically very enthusiastic, hardworking, and eager to learn, and then also eager to contribute. From our experience, they want to be out there. They're excited about it, and it's really a nice energy to bring into your organization. They also often bring cutting-edge information and skills that they're getting out of their classes, and can share that with you. And on the other hand, you have the opportunity then to share your experience and your cutting-edge information and skills from the profession. It's also an opportunity, Mary Jo was mentioning this, to introduce Cornell Cooperative Extension as a career and a resource, which I think is really important. And then, of course, CCE bridges campuses, the campus and communities as a trusted partner. So you are, I think, a key connection to your community for our students, and you help facilitate those campus community connections for students. So although an internship is often just with the host, there are times when we also want them connected to the community, either formally or perhaps informally, and Cornell Cooperative Extension is a great way to make that happen. And as we talked about this as a group when we were preparing the presentation, we wanted to be clear that these really are not mutually exclusive benefits and opportunities. There's really a synergistic effect that makes it a really positive return on everyone's investment.
I just want to add something that came to mind that we found through our internship program. The students actually help CCE collaborators to have access often to hard-to-reach populations as well as youth.
That's a good point, Mary Jo. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Richard Kiley. Again, Richard is the director of the service, or the Center for Engaged Learning and Research, and he's going to talk about some of those, how internships fit in with service learning objectives more generally, and then some of the characteristics of good service learning partnerships.
So hopefully this won't be repetitive, but I think it's really important to think about the value of working with cooperative extension. We kind of highlighted a little bit of that, but doing community-based work and affording students an opportunity to connect with community partners can be an incredibly rich experience when most of their experience is in the classroom. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the R's and C's of good practices in this work, and there are likely more R's and C's and perhaps other letters that you can introduce here. I'm fond of P's as well. So I'll be interested in your comments, and I'm sure that you can weigh in on a number of these different dimensions. But I just thought I'd highlight a few. So when I think about good quality community-based partnerships, there are a number of different key dimensions to think about, and I think about these when thinking about this process as a pre, during, and post. So it's developmental. So each of these dimensions should be thought about before the experience happens, during the experience, and after the experience. So one of the really important dimensions of this is it's such a relational experience. It's about building relationships and building quality relationships. In fact, I would argue that's perhaps the most important aspect of this work, is building quality relationships with all of the stakeholders that are involved, whether the community members, the extension staff member, educator, researcher, practitioner, the student, a faculty member. There are all sorts of different stakeholders, the organizations that you work with. And building really strong, trusting, respectful relationships is very important. So when embarking on this, it's really important to think about the nature of the relationship and the kinds of roles that each of the participants have, and to do that up front as part of a preparatory set of meetings. The other piece to this is students often don't, because they haven't had highly, engaging professional experiences, and they haven't really connected what they're learning in the classroom with practical activities and tasks. It's really important to have some pre-training and some preparation for that. And so when developing the partnership, it's really important to think about how you can prepare the student to be successful in a particular organizational context. So thinking very deeply about the role of the student, the role of the educator, the role of the mentor, how those relationships will happen, the role of the community member. So all of that should be discussed up front and continually negotiated and navigated beforehand, during, and after the experience. Students often come away with an experience highly transformed, and so they want to do more. They want to make more of a contribution. So even thinking about their role, they go back to the university and they get into their college or course sequence, and they want to do more for the community partner or the organization that they work with. So maintaining that relationship is really important as well. finding meaningful ways. I think that meaningful part is really important to think about, what constitutes a meaningful experience. Another piece of that is reciprocity. We use that term a lot, and it really shouldn't be an empty term. Should think very deeply about what are each of the stakeholders, how are their needs and interests and assets being used in the most effective way, how are they being addressed. And so being upfront about that, again, before the partnership or the relationship is developed, to think deeply about, what kind of benefits will students get out of it, what kind of benefits will the community partner get, or the organization, how will the cooperative extension benefit, how do you think about that as part of the overall experience, and to really be open-minded about that, recognize that if you skip down to the resources section, that there's likely going to be a difference in the kinds of resources that people are contributing, and so to think very deeply about how are we going to share resources, how are we going to negotiate those resources on the short term and the long term is really important. And that'll have an impact on some of the C's that I'll talk about in a second. Reflection is a term that's used a lot in the community-based learning world, and reflection is a skill that not a lot of people get a tremendous amount of time to practice. Students often come to these experiences having a set of assumptions about reflection as being a diary or a journal, and they haven't really received a lot of training in that. And so to become highly skilled reflective practitioners, that takes a lot of mentorship from practitioners that they're working with. It also means that prior to, again, as part of the preparation, they have some time to practice their reflective skills and to use. There are a number of engaged learning and research. We offer anyone, staff, faculty, students, the opportunity to practice reflection through a number of frameworks. There are really useful frameworks out there. It's not just say, hey, go out and reflect, here's a journal. It's really having a consistent way to do that, and a way to actually assess the quality of the reflection is really important. So to build in reflective space in a structured way into a program is very important, but also using frameworks around reflection. And in engaged learning and research, we have a lot of resources to help people think about reflection. Then I mentioned resources, and then research reporting and representation. So often students will have this amazing experience. The extension educator has an amazing experience. The community member has an amazing experience. And yet, did it happen? How do we know that it happened? And so being able to document the experience is incredibly important. Now, reflection can be important. Reflections can be important data, but there are lots of other ways to think about gathering evidence on the quality of the experience and the impact on the community partner, depending on what the purpose of the relationship is. So I would highly recommend that when you're building these relationships, to think deeply about how research is incorporated into the program, how data is being collected, how the experience is being documented, and then how it's being reported. There are multiple ways to report learning that happens or the impact that happens in a program. And then how is it represented? Is it a policy brief or some type of brief? Is it a report? Is it an evaluation? Is it a proposal for grant funding? There are lots of ways to report the meaning of a particular experience and the value of a relationship or the impact on a program based on the work that the student engages in with multiple stakeholders. So that's incredibly important as well, and to build that into the program beforehand is very important. And you can do pre and post surveys. You can build in an evaluation that can be online. There are multiple ways to think about how you can research, report, and represent the value or the meaning behind an experience.
So one of the questions that came in while you were talking, Richard, was what would reflection look like on a day-to-day basis for an intern, if not journaling? I don't know if you have any thoughts or suggestions.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. So there are lots of different methods for thinking about reflection. Online tools for that are really important. So for me, the gold standard in reflection are electronic portfolios. And I don't know if the audience is familiar, but there are a number of different platforms now for using electronic portfolios. And they can be used for giving feedback, for archiving information, for posting any kinds of documents, and then also for representing the value of a learning experience. And so I would recommend the use of e-portfolios. And again, building that into the program before it starts is very important because there are lots of different types of platforms. So deciding on one that you think is user-friendly and technologically sound is really important. I've used a couple of different types of e-portfolios. Google Sites is free, so a lot of students like Google Sites. Cornell supports Mahara, which is a platform they decided to support a few years ago. Digication is another platform that people use, and the Office of Academic Diversity Initiatives at Cornell, the Associate Vice Provost there, A.T. Miller, had a FIPSE grant to bring Digication here, and so he does training around Digication for staff and students. I think that's still happening. But it's really important to think about, the one thing that's really valuable about an e-portfolio is, again, you can showcase work that's audio, visual, narrative form. So a journal is typically a written form of reflection, but nowadays students can represent the meaning of their experience in multiple modalities. So an e-portfolio allows you to do that and to showcase work. I know in some internship programs, like the Cooperative Extension Internship Program, they have a poster session at the end of that. Well, students can bring their computer and also display their e-portfolio. Oftentimes, reflective assignments in classes or outside in experiential learning, they're discrete. An e-portfolio compels a student to integrate those discrete assignments in a meaningful way, which is highly unusual. They often don't see the relationship among these discrete experiences that they're having or assignments. So an e-portfolio is an incredible integrative learning mechanism.
And Annie, I would just add to that, with the Cal New York State Internship Program, we both used Mahara. We've both done stuff online, so the students are independently journaling and kind of keeping track of their experiences. But then another piece of our reflection is that we meet virtually on a weekly basis. So by conference call, they're sharing their thoughts and building off of the thinking that they've been doing. So it's a nice way to tie it all together as well.
Really nice question. Thank you. Okay, so then lastly, just briefly, the 4Cs. So the connection piece has multiple parts to it, and it relates to building relationships. So when you're thinking about a student intern, the value of this experience is that they can connect with multiple community partners, stakeholders, and so really thinking deeply about giving them exposure to different types of perspectives is really key. And then the other connecting part is I often ask interns to create what I call placement learning plan, and that is to think about their personal, professional, and academic goals before they engage in the internship experience, and then connecting that to their academic work that they're currently working on in their major or minor, and then also connecting that to the internship experience so the supervisor, the mentor really has a better understanding of what they think. To have them be highly reflective beforehand about what they think they're going to get out of the experience, and then matching that with the experience is really important. So one connection is just connecting students with as many stakeholders as possible, and then the other connection is to connect their work with their personal, professional, and academic goals and be really consistent about that throughout the process, pre, during, and post. The other piece is, I think is really important, is to come in with a collaborative mindset. And that is, who's at the table when you're negotiating the relationships, who's missing from the table, and then how can we think about sharing resources, sharing skills, sharing the different ways that we approach a particular activity. Bringing that mindset in is really important so that everyone feels like they're making an important contribution. The commitment part is really important as well. So students, as we know, universities, the semester system doesn't really fit daily life. And so often students are expecting closure. And so really figuring out what are the short and long-term goals are so important. And so when you are developing a relationship, you have to make a decision up front, how long are we going to develop this relationship? What is our commitment? Is it 10 years, 5 years, 6 months? And so being upfront about the level of commitment and then having the student reflect on that is really important. What's your commitment, for example, to the farm worker program? When you finish this program, are you still going to be working and advocating on behalf of farm workers? That's a really important question for students, and they grapple with that. So helping them with that is important. And then the last...
And thinking about mechanisms where they can continue their commitment throughout the academic year in a manageable way, I think is a critical piece of that.
Agreed. That's really important. Thank you, Mary Jo. And then lastly, all of these dimensions should have a set of criteria which will allow you to measure, to support quality, but also measure quality. So being highly reflective about the criteria you're using to measure the quality of the relationship, the role, the reflection, the sharing of resources, the research, reporting, all those things can be measured, and to have a set of explicit criteria and have students actually participate in that process is a highly meta-reflective activity. Often they don't get the opportunity to establish criteria for the quality of an experience, so having them reflect on that is really important.
Thank you, Richard. One of the things I just want to add to what Richard said about that is that we'll talk in a few slides about the roles that associations play in these internship programs, and they're varied. So you're going to come into those different things that Richard just shared, those different components of internship programs or best practices in different ways. But I think what's really key to remember is that you should really have an opportunity, at the very least, to contribute, to think about all of those, no matter what your role is as an internship program partner. So I'm not going to go into each of these in detail. These are hot links to the different internship programs on campus, but I just wanted to share a little bit about the spectrum of internship opportunities offered through Cornell. So some are just referenced. Those are actually hosted by other organizations. You can find those on the Cornell Career Services. Project ION is one that's based out of the Syracuse region, designed to connect young professionals to the area. There's multiple opportunities available there, but Cornell just lists them on their site as one possible thing. There's also multiple internship opportunities from a variety of hosts that send their descriptions to Cornell Career Services, and they get posted. And really, Cornell's role in that is just to make students aware of these opportunities out there. They're really not otherwise very connected to them. On the other hand, there's internship opportunities that are sponsored by Cornell alumni. There's like the Blumenthal internships. They're based in New York City and Westchester. The ISCO environmental internships, as I understand it, those are ones that can be self-designed, but you are then working on environmental issues. The Blumenthal one, I think, is more with community service organizations, but again, an intern or a student would reach out to those organizations and say, you know, I'm interested in working with you, and they have their own position description. Then there's more that are really coordinated by Cornell. Cornell is facilitating the connections, so entrepreneurship at Cornell provides those opportunities. You apply through the program, and then you are placed with hosts, I think, throughout the country, if not beyond. So then there's also ones that have more of an academic component. So some of those are really just the internship experience. You're placed with a host, and that's the end of it. Others have this academic component, as Richard mentioned, and where you may have a pre or post academic opportunity, and it's really heavily coordinated through Cornell with, again, that disciplinary focus. So again, I encourage you to check those out. The ones that are listed there are ones that at least have some placements in New York. And why that's important is it may not be directly placed with CCE, but again, you have interns in your communities, which in my mind presents opportunities for you to connect with the students, connect with your hosts, and play a role that can hopefully benefit you or your community. So just, again, that's to give you a sense. And just to share a little bit, again, these programs vary widely in terms of their characteristics. Some are statewide, some are in select New York communities, some are beyond New York State. The eligibility ranges across class years, so some include first-year students. Often you'll see sophomores, juniors, and seniors, and then there's even grad student opportunities. Some are limited to students in specific colleges, some are across the entire university, and some of our programs even welcome students from other institutions. They can be, as I mentioned before, supervised just by the host or through a campus host partnership. Some are over the semester, most are many are during the summer, 8 to 10 or 12 weeks. Some are paid, some are unpaid. Again, I mentioned the academic components. A big key thing to keep in mind is that we are sometimes reaching out to our associations for as housing is a very big issue for students. And so we often connect with our partners in CCE to say, do you know anybody in your community that might be willing to host an intern? And many of these programs try to reach out to alumni. We can advance that. So just part of that research that I just presented, or some of that overview, is part of a research project that I'm engaged with through Engaged Learning and Research as a fellow this year, and it's supported by them. And what we're trying to look at is to identify what are the characteristics and a spectrum of community-engaged internship opportunities at Cornell, in part because those programs, I think, are doing a lot of things independently that we might be able to do together, or at least increase the overall quality, I think, of our programs by sharing and dialoguing across those programs. So Celeste just asked me to mention that. We'll be sharing a report once that's completed about what those characteristics are and what some of the opportunities are to share across those. So, and some of the best practices. So if anybody's interested, please feel free to email me, and I'm happy to share that once that's completed. Okay, Celeste. Okay. So just from what we've shared so far, I think some of the key takeaways are just to remember that there are lots of internship opportunities offered to Cornell students. Not all of them are based in New York, but if they are, they do have, there's lots of opportunities, I think, for CCE to engage with those. Okay. All right, so now we're going to move into the programs that are partnering with or a distinct part of CCE. So we'll start with CCE's own internship program, and Tom Overton is going to talk about that.
Yep, go ahead. Oops, go back one, Celeste. There we go. Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Tom Overton, I'm a professor in animal science and also Associate Director for Cornell Cooperative Extension with oversight of ag and food systems. So this is actually my first time really truly involved in some level of oversight of this part of the CCE Summer Internship Program. And I'm joined by Connie Kahn and Kim Fleming, who provide certainly leadership, especially on logistical aspects of the internship program, and they can certainly answer probably many questions that I can if they come up. But so the CCE Internship Program really is focused on providing internships that link faculty or campus-based programs in both the College of Ag and Life Sciences and also College of Human Ecology with regional and county-based CCE educators and associations. And it really is designed to provide linkages there. We certainly want to use it also to attract and develop skills of students, and also exposure of students to research and extension activities that are really on and off campus. And again, I think the emphasis are really being off campus in terms of that linkage with associations. And I think, you know, one, I would say, intended consequence also is a lot of our students don't really recognize what maybe career opportunities may be within Cornell Cooperative Extension. And so this certainly provides them with a way to really get a feel for what extension really does and can mean at the local level. So one of our general criteria, of course, we seek projects that integrate research and extension activities really in places other than Ithaca and Geneva. So we really do want that linkage between campus and association or regional and county. And we also, again, as Richard very nicely pointed out, you know, we seek the qualities that he talked about that really focus on providing a good mentoring relationship and learning experience for the students. So the internship, the way they've been designed is they provide $4,000 to support salary for the student intern, and then $500 for operating expenses. And again, faculty, mentor, and association will be responsible for other expenses and things like that. And Connie can jump into it if she wants to add anything. Go ahead.
Actually, thank you so much, Tom. I think our internship design, it fits really well within the community engagement and research learning model, because the goal of the internship is really to facilitate that learning opportunity for students. So our internship is really considered as a research project rather than a job. So that's a very important concept that I think we can develop here, is that the purpose is to help the student to engage that learning opportunity. And the reason I mentioned that is because the $4,000 stipend it's considered stipend, it's not considered salary, and there is specific criteria set by Department of Labor for our project to be viewed as a service learning project rather than a job. So, thank you.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, so and Tom, I bet
I see the question.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chris asked a great question. How do we establish a new internship opportunity? And it leads directly into the next slide. So the way the annual process works, and again, this is my first time through, I provide oversight for the internships that relate to faculty and campus programs in the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences. Jen Tiffany manages and provides oversight for the process within College of Community Ecology. But in November, we solicit and receive applications from faculty and CCE associations requesting internships. We are past the deadline, but if anybody on this call or in this webinar really finds this tremendously attractive and has a faculty linkage, and they get it, at least for CALS, to me in the next few days, I'll certainly consider it with the others. I will tell you that we already have about double the applications for the number of internships we're actually going to be able to fund. So the interest so far this year has been very high. In January, February, we finalized the internship offerings with the faculty or campus mentor and the CCE staff, and then we begin seeking applications of interested students, make selections for students in March and April, and then of course the internships tend to take place during the summertime. In terms of the 2014 internship program, we had 26 total internships. They were roughly half and half between, or they were exactly half and half between CALS and College of Community Ecology, and the funding for those do come mostly from those colleges, maybe a little bit from CCE itself, mostly from the colleges. There's a link there that Connie provided to me, or Connie provided, that really describes these internships, the past internships in more detail, so people can get a sense for what those projects were and things like that, going all the way back to 2008 or so. I should note that in 2007, this program started with 5 internships. Connie shared with me, so it's really grown to 26, and it's become a very high visibility program, I would say, within not just the colleges, but also within campus in general, and that's, so it's been nice. Okay.
Can you talk just a little bit more about the faculty interest? Like, so how do you get, I think that's a question that counties typically have, is how do you get that faculty interest?
Yeah, so I think in the past, I see another question here from Chris. I think in the past it's been, I think the way Chris Watkins managed it in part, he really emphasized that it was kind of initiated at the faculty level and going toward the association. But I guess as I see this, I'm seeing this happening in both ways, because certainly associations that have had interns in the past recognize the value, and they may initiate some of those connections too. And again, I have the application, again, at least within the CALS side, I sent that not only to the department extension leaders, but also to all ag specialists and ag staff and executive directors throughout the state. So so they should have that application already. It's a relatively simple one-page application. I think my contact info is on the last slide. You can also email me separately. I'd be happy to send that to you, Chris, and others. In terms of the College of Community Ecology associated internships, that you would need to contact Jen Tiffany, because she really provides oversight and makes decisions on that, on internships at that college. Next slide, please. So I just picked a few examples of the 26 internships from 2014. I'm not going to go through all of them by any means, but you just by looking at this slide, I think you get a sense for the variety of types of internships, both within the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences and within the College of Community Ecology under the umbrella of the CCE Summer Internship Program. So again, a lot of things that are agriculture-based, community-based, and other things. And again, it's quite a fascinating representation of the whole program. Okay, again, I'd like to thank Heidi for participation, and I'll turn it back to you or to Mary Jo.
And we'll turn it over to Mary Jo Dudley to talk about the Cornell Farm Worker Program internship program.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Jo Dudley. I'm the director of the Cornell Farm Worker Program. which is actually a university-wide program with participants from faculty and students throughout the university, with my academic home being the Department of Development Sociology. So we're going into our 10th year of the internship program, and we initially started it as a way for students to apply their academic learning to a real setting. I don't know who has the clicker.
You can tell me when to move ahead.
And one of the thoughts behind this is our mission is to address farm worker needs through education, extension, and research. And students bring to that process often cultural and linguistic skills that are helpful for us to reach these hard-to-reach populations as well as youth. So we have interns, some of them work with CCE, some of them do not, but they have been involved in working with farm workers on specific topics that the farm workers identify as their priority needs. And in part, this also provides a link between the farm workers and the CCE county associations. The previous slide showed, we were working on helping farm workers to have a better understanding of good agricultural practices, and so they were looking at some materials that we developed with them. You can move forward. So students spend the summer first in a very intensive orientation experience, and then they are placed working with different farms. And through the CCE county associations, we found this particularly helpful in those areas of the state where the county associations had limited interactions with farm workers. So having a student who could facilitate those interactions linguistically were helpful. And culturally, where we tried to look at ways that some of the education, this is a program that we did that was a nutrition education program, but trying to link the goals of the nutrition program with culturally appropriate approaches to doing that. One of our first internship collaborations with CCE was with Bev Mancuso. She'll be talking about that, where we had students who were working with children of farm workers, and some of the activities they were involved in was an educational program about flora and fauna, a unit on science and math looking at growth cycles, and they actually did a project on embryology where the CCE staff gave a very detailed description of the process, which was facilitated with our students who were also studying embryology and communicating that with children of farm workers. And we've also seen that it's been important for those county associations who want to contact members of the community, in particular parents of young people, and provided a mechanism for students' direct interactions with the children to make that possible. A very specific project that we did through this relationship was we developed a workshop on chemical safety on dairy farms to enhance some of the work that the dairy teams were doing, but to take the information and create a highly visual audio format that was accessible to the farm worker population, which often has limited literacy in their own language. And on some of the farms, the students were involved in helping to communicate some of the information that was being developed in the county association to the workers. One project was looking at housing and how to improve farm worker housing, which eventually this student did her master's thesis on farm worker housing and is now a farm worker housing developer. So it's important to see this linkage between their academic work and future careers within this field. Another project we worked on in Ulster County was looking at opportunities to address some of the economic issues that farmers were having. So we did a research project on the opportunity for a fair trade onion in New York State, and this involved the interns talking with producers as well as farm workers and actually doing an economic analysis about what that opportunity was. In Washington County, we had an intern who spent the summer working with their ag team to develop materials that were helpful for farm workers to do educational planning in advance of emergencies. And we developed through that project a on-farm ID for immigrant workers who often have no other form of ID. I think the primary thing is to take academic learning, create an environment where students can be engaged in fulfilling the mission of the program, which is to address the needs of farm workers and their families, and to do that in collaboration with county associations where it can be helpful.
Thanks, Mary Jo. So this is Heidi again. I'm going to talk a little bit about the CALS New York State Internship Program. We're starting into our third year of this program. It has a couple of different goals, which is really to provide, it's for CALS majors and minors, but it's to provide students with career-related work experience in upstate New York, but also opportunities to really meaningfully engage with the communities that they are based in, that their hosts are based in. And by meaningfully engage, it's designed to get the students out, meeting people in the communities, understanding what the community is about, and developing connections that may lead to those students to come back to career opportunities, life opportunities in those communities. So really over the long term, we're hoping to promote the attraction and retention of young educated professionals in upstate New York. We do this by placing interns with businesses, agencies, and organizations. They work with their hosts on their specific host position, which is a variety of opportunities, and they work then with community partners 8 hours a week to complete a community engagement project. Over the last couple of years, the project has related to understanding what youth retention and attraction activities are happening in these communities, but now this year our students in 2014 proposed some potential projects that could help support youth retention and attraction, but also more generally community and economic development interests. And so we're hoping that next year our students will be working with community partners during that 8-hour week to build on those projects that were proposed this year. They do receive a stipend of $4,000 that's supported through a variety of sources. The program starts right now. We are recruiting hosts, and then we'll shortly be reaching out to students in the spring. The last 8 weeks of the spring semester, we have a pre-departure course that prepares students to leave just a few weeks later. For the summer internship, which is 10 weeks, usually I think it's like June 9th through August 15th or something like that. And then they return in the fall to an independent study course and a fall forum where they present their work to their hosts and other community guests as well as folks on campus, including our CCE partners as well. This is just an example of where we have been over the last couple of years and where we're planning to be. We're still, again, recruiting hosts, but we are focused this year in several specific communities and, again, working with both nonprofit and for-profit organizations in those communities. I will just say that while we're just starting Life Mary Jo, we're excited about what the potential that this real-life experience combined with academic experience brings to the students. They've been very, very positive about their projects. Community members have been very, very excited about the outcomes. And importantly, you know, I don't think we'll know whether this youth retention and attraction component is working for a while, but we've already had some of our hosts say, you know, I'm retiring in a few years. It would be great if my intern could take over this position. So it's exciting to hear some of those things. Okay, Celeste. So I just want to mention some of the roles that CCE partners have been playing with the program over the last few years. Currently, they've helped identify and connect us with potential hosts in their communities. They've also been internship hosts and in turn a program advisor, meaning helping to support the development of the overall internship program. They've been key in helping us to identify some housing options. They have been a key local contact for our interns. So again, when we want them to make community connections, CCE has been absolutely essential in facilitating those connections and just even meeting with the students to provide an overview of what the communities in their county are all about. We've had conversations with directors about connecting the interns with their advisory board members and also Cornell alumni. We've talked about maybe having board members invite them to a game or something like that, again, to build these connections within the communities. But I think that there's lots of other opportunities and would be really interested in hearing your thoughts about the ways that you might be interested in supporting or connecting to this program in those counties. So, okay, Celeste? So, before we turn this over to Bev, this is just again to highlight some of the opportunities for ways that CCEs, and I'm saying support, but again, that's across a broad spectrum ranging from providing initial orientations, welcoming folks to the community to actually hosting interns. So it's just a summary of some of those things I mentioned, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch more. Okay, well, why don't we turn it over to Bev, but while we're doing that, if you would type in your responses to what concerns you have in supporting an intern, and I'm thinking that Bev may touch on some of these as we turn it over to her.
Okay, and Bev, I have unmuted you.
Oh, I was waiting. So hi, everybody. This is Bev Mancuso. I'm the Executive Director of Genesee County Extension. And watching all this has been pretty interesting. I can't believe, Mary Jo, that it was almost 10 years ago that we had our first experience with the Cornell Farm Workers Program. And how that worked out here was Mary Jo reached out to me. I was pretty new as an Executive Director, you know, and it seems so much longer, the situation we were in at that point as far as our reaching out with farm workers to where we are today. But we ended up having 2 interns out here through the Cornell Farm Worker Program, and they really did a great job enhancing our connection with farm workers. And the programming that Mary Jo shared about the incubation embryology, it also allowed us to really get more of our programming into that audience that we, up until then, had been really unable to connect with. So it opened the door for us to do more nutrition programming and more 4-H programming, and actually we did a summer program with the farm worker children in one of our local schools. So things have really evolved nicely over the years just from that one interaction with the farm worker internship program. Then this last summer, we actually had an experience with the CAL's New York State internship program. Very different situation. We had one student who was out here who worked at Mueller Quaker, which is our new yogurt factory, and he was there 4 days a week. And then 1 day a week, he was out in the community really trying to work on the project that Heidi mentioned about youth retention and attraction, because I mean, you guys all know it's not just an issue for Genesee County, it's an issue for New York State. And this is really an issue for us with the future expansion of nanotech manufacturing that's supposed to be opening up out here. So the intern that we had this summer was just a bundle of energy. He was everywhere. He took every challenge that I gave him. He interacted with community partnerships and really just made this his community for the summer, and just did a wonderful job of, you know, digging in, finding out what's already here, coming up with great questions. I mean, I was challenging him and he was challenging me. It was just an awesome relationship, to the point that at the end of his time here, you know, when he said to me, when I'm all done, he says, when I get all done and I grow up and get a real job, he goes, how would I make these connections in the community I end up in? You know, and of course I said to him, well, if you connect with Cornell Cooperative Extension, you should be able to make all those connections. But my point is, in both of these opportunities, we had great ways to connect with different portions of our community that with our staff, you know, our actual association staff, we hadn't been able to do that. But these actually extended our capacity out into different ways and actually helped us look like we were meeting needs that we hadn't already met. So, you know, I really appreciate being part of this opportunity to talk about this. It's been a great trip through memory lane, watching what we've been through in the last few years. So I know that's a lot of information in a short time. Everybody did a great job explaining what you look at when you're doing this. But to me, it's really been worth it, and it's going to be hard. I'm going to be hard pressed to top what we experienced this year with being part of the internship program.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Bev. I wondered if you wanted to add anything at all about challenges or, cost, time, and investment in it. So I think that may be a concern for some folks.
Sure. I will echo the one thing you mentioned about housing. I know that was a concern for the students this summer. I don't remember that being an issue the first time because I think both of the interns we had were somewhat local, so they had a place to stay. Housing was a challenge, but, we sent an email out through our network and, somehow something worked out, and that was good.
I can add something, Bev, just
Sure.
because that there's a question about interns who live outside the area, housing for 10 weeks. When we started our internship program, one of the focuses was to take students back to their community with this whole idea of retention, to show them that there are options in their community. But we've also had students who are not from that community, and we had quite a bit of success in linking students with summer housing with universities or other educational institutions where students were gone for the summer. But certainly it has been important to reach out to the CCE networks and find that's been a role that has been very productive in just finding out if there are people who can offer housing for that short period of time.
I can give a fun example of that. Last year during the Cal New York State Internship Program, we had a student in the city of Amsterdam, so this was 2013, and we were trying desperately to find housing, and some of you may know Andy Fagan, who's the director of CCE Chemung and Tioga County. He was originally from that area. His parents actually rented a space in their home for our students. So it was fun that our student was working with BeachNut, a key CALS partner, connected to CCE through Andy and his parents living on a farm. So there's a variety of ways to do that, but I think, and I'd be happy to talk with you a little bit more, Angela, because it's definitely an issue and one that we're now starting to really work with our partners to better understand and think about how to do that.
And I have some ideas too, Angela. We had an experience in Ulster County where the interns actually lived in the housing where the sprayers lived temporarily. So it was a seasonal housing that actually was supported by CCE. So there are different modalities and just have to be creative about housing.
So going back to this idea of being intentional and thinking through, that Richard mentioned, thinking through what you want to do before you start to develop your internship, here's just a quick set of things to keep in mind. What are your outcomes that you're striving for, and being clear about that, and then thinking about the investments that you're going to need to make. And it does require time and energy, and I don't think any of us want to discount that, but I also, I think from what we've heard from those that we've worked with, I think you have a very high return on your investment in these types of programs. That said, I want to go back to the one question about someone expressed concern about developing an internship program or an internship opportunity. So again, you want to take it too, Tom? Okay. I'll just add that, there's these programs that we're mentioning, but if you have the resources locally, you can also propose an internship opportunity, and we can have it marketed through career services. That happens with other organizations. So it doesn't have to be through this way, but these are certainly some venues. Tom?
Yeah, again, I'm looking at Chris's question, looks specific to my comments relative to the CCE internship program. And again, I mentioned there's a couple things there. I think when these programs started, they were probably more faculty program driven, and I see it now as much more of a two-way street between the association educators and faculty. That said, the quality of that linkage is important in terms of making sure that that's a true collaboration between campus and the local association, local educator. And I only mentioned that twice, getting a lot of applications relative to funds available, simply to indicate that, one, this program obviously has grown in popularity, and two, that it is, it's competitive. And so, but again, so it's all of us to make sure we're trying to put resources toward the best internship experiences that we can.
Yeah, I noticed somebody posted the NYU connection. I actually direct the Urban Scholars Program, and we work with Cooperative Extension in New York City every year. We have a couple of interns actually with them. And we have students, we actually provide housing for those students in the Urban Scholars Program at the 92nd Street Y. But we did look into some other housing options, and NYU is an option, so I'm glad you mentioned that, Sarah. And there are obviously there are other colleges that you can look into. There was another one, I think it was a design school or fashion school that we looked at that had comparable prices to NYU.
We did SUNY New Paltz housing for students who were working in the Hudson Valley.
And there seems to be a variety of responses. So some of the community colleges that we've reached out to have been very receptive. Others, for insurance purposes, have said, sure, but your student has to register with us for the summer. And so there's some things that are complicating there. But I just realized in this last slide that I listed the internship program contact, but I did not list engaged learning and research, where you may want to go for additional information. So we'll be sure that when we post the presentation that Richard's contact information is included. So
that sounds like a great plan. Well, we're wrapping up the hour here, and I really want to thank everybody that's here in the room for presenting. This was wonderful, and Bev Mancuso for joining us virtually. I think this was a wonderful presentation. We will be, we have recorded it, and I'll be posting it on the organizational development website. So if you go to staff.cce.cornell.edu, and under units, you'll find organizational development and accountability, and you'll see there right on the right-hand side, campus program connections. That is one of the links. This presentation, along with the rest of the Campus County Connection webinars, will be there and for future viewing or sharing. So thank you so much for being a part of today's program. And with that, have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.